Welcome to Spirit Journey Collective. I'm your host, Sarah Tai. Get ready for compelling conversations with guests of all walks of life who believe they have found their purpose. Together, we will uncover unique backstories, hearing the raw experiences that led them to the work they are doing today. Let's expand our minds together with the captivating stories and inspiration that awaits. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Spirit Journey Collective. I have a really great guest today. His name is Jehan Sattaur. He is a therapist, a hypnotherapist, and a self-sabotage coach, which is a new one I've not heard of. So I'm really excited to dive in and learn more about that. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me on, Sarah.
Yeah, I was on your podcast and we had a great chat, and I thought, oh my gosh, I need to have you on too. So why don't you share their listeners a little bit more about what you do and what you offer? Especially, I'm super curious about that self-sabotage coach one, because that's one I've not heard before.
The way that I see things is that every helping modality is really about dealing with unconscious or subconscious, whichever you prefer, impulses, things that are stuck below the surface that you're having a little bit of trouble dealing with. So I got into self-sabotage because I realized most of the clients that are coming to me, if not all of them, to be quite frank, they all seem to kind of know what the problem is. And so they don't really want to deal with it, or they don't even know how to go about dealing with it. It just, for some reason, there's a separation between them and the thoughts that they're thinking and the behaviors that they're doing. And they're like, how do I get around this thing? And so that's self-sabotage, because if you know that you should do something that's good for you and you won't do it, that's self-sabotage. Why are you keeping yourself stuck, right? So that's really what it's about for me.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think most people who get stuck, there is usually that element of, you know what you're supposed to be doing it, so why aren't you? And yeah, so I would love to figure out, like, learn more about what that self-sabotage piece could look like. I know that for some people it's just avoidance, right? Like, just let's just pretend like that problem over there or that thing that I keep doing and repeating doesn't exist. I know there's that aspect, but then there's probably also an aspect of like self-worth, maybe feeling like they can't get to the thing that they really desire. So instead they just backtrack because they know the cycle. I know there's probably a lot of different elements to it, but how did you find this work specifically with self-sabotage? But I mean, in all of it, therapist and hypnotherapy, obviously you have a desire to help people. So what's your backstory that led you into helping people and then stepping into the world of self-sabotage?
Let me start with your first question. The thing about self-sabotage for me is that my definition is that self-sabotage is thoughts, beliefs, emotions, behaviors, or actions which inhibit your progress in any area of life. So that could be your success, your health, your wealth, your joy, abundance, and spiritual growth. I break self-sabotage down into two categories. So for me, it's a byproduct of one of two things: programming, which is language inside your head that you're using to justify or how you think or how you solve problems or not solve problems, and conditioning, things that come from the environment that are repetitive, or things that we're conditioned to think that are good for us but are actually bad for us, that actually affect our ability to think and tap into our natural reserve of energy and willpower and things like that, or things that just shut down our our brain or our body in one way and drain us of energy and stop us from actually executing behaviors, right? So the results of self-sabotage sound like pretty much everything that everybody deals with on a daily basis, which would be procrastination, people pleasing, self-doubt, fear of failure, fear of success, negative self-talk, addiction, perfectionism, avoidance of emotional self-regulation, avoidance of self, avoidance of intellectual maturity, spiritual bankruptcy. I could go on and on. Poor relationships, poor health, victimhood, all that stuff, right? So how I got into this was I was all of those things. I was all of those things about 15 years ago, and I got tired of it. I was a musician and I was touring around the US trying to find myself and find my place in the industry, and just had a few bad experiences that showed the dark side of it to me. And like, the business side is, to reach a certain point, you have to be compromising with your values and your morals in a lot of ways. And you have to deal with a lot of difficult people. And that just wasn't for me. And I was dealing with challenges from like my childhood with my parents and things like that. And it left me depressed and addicted and partially suicidal. I tried to commit suicide like 3 different times, and it didn't really work out. And so once I realized that it wasn't working, I realized, okay, I must be here for a reason. So let's try to figure out what that is, because nobody else is trying to help me anyway. Like nobody feels sorry for me, nothing. And so that was what really turned things around for me. And I started getting into reading about psychology. I'd initially taken psychology at university, but some strange events happened, and that psychology professor disappeared for the rest of the semester and kind of left us out in the cold, I guess you could say. So I ended up not pursuing that at college, and I eventually dropped out to pursue music because that was the thing that I was good at. I always had a thing for helping people. There's so many people that I reconnected with over the years that are like, yeah, I'm not surprised that you're a therapist now because you're always really good at listening and stuff like that. I think my entire life was just gearing me towards this.
That is actually very common that I've heard from most people who feel like they found their purpose and found their calling. It's usually like when you look at the backstories, there's all these reasons, like all these hurdles, obstacles, struggles that now they're helping other people with. Like they had to go through that first so that way they could take what they've learned and help those so they don't have to go through that same trial the way that you did. And so yeah, it's a pretty common backstory that I hear, which is pretty cool just to kind of see that common thread, but also promising that were able to acknowledge all the self-sabotaging that you were doing in the past, and that you feel like you've reached a place where it sounds like you've gotten better at catching yourself in that moment and then shifting at least enough to now you can help other people do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I hardly self-sabotage at all. Very, very seldom do I do it. And I'm fortunate to say that because there's a lot of people who can't say that. It takes practice and it takes work to become comfortable with the way that you think, the way that the subconscious works. It's a lot of paying attention that most people, I think, aren't willing to do because it's too painful and nobody wants to be always on. But in order for me to lead people in that capacity, I have to always be on. And I like to deal with reality as much as possible. What's actually happening? What am I actually telling myself about the situation? Is there something I missed? And I just get it done. I don't want to mess around because I know that there's more consequences to leaving something undealt with than there are, just to get it done. Yeah.
It's a lot of mindfulness. It sounds like you have to be really aware of how just all the things, how you're feeling, what's happening, what you think is happening. Because, right, there's two different things happening. Usually there's what's happening, then there's your perception of what's happening, then there's how you feel about what's happening, all of that, like, simultaneously. So it sounds like you have to be really good at being able to be aware of all the moving parts enough to not get sucked up in the perception or in your feelings at the same time. That does sound like a lot of work when you put it like that. And yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I can totally relate though. There's that element of like checking out. And I think a lot of us, speaking for myself and probably many of my listeners, we all struggle with different aspects of, well, for instance, there's always, checking out on our phones, right? Where we just scroll mindlessly, or, not being present and not being really here for the moment. You're kind of in and out. You're here and then you're out. And then you're here and then you're out. And then when you're out, what's happening? What choices are you making? And how are you showing up when you're not fully, as you put it, turned on? So what kind of advice do you give to first help people become more aware? Because I feel like a lot of that checking out isn't even conscious. It's probably more of like a subconscious, like you just need to set everything down for a second without even realizing you're doing it.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So I'll say this. For about 7 hours out of every day, your brain needs to turn off. It needs to go into alpha brainwave state because it's processing so much information subconsciously that without that process, you would have a series of mini strokes. Like you would be unable to take it all in, and it would overload you. And the things that I say about self sabotage, they're not nice. They're not light and fluffy and airy fairy and new agey or even within a religious context. What I have found is that it takes a very special person to really sit with the reality of the way that the world is designed and not look at it as if it's a conspiracy theory, because as soon as you're into conspiracy, you're a victim. And it doesn't even matter the way that the world is set up and what so-called powers that shouldn't be are doing. You have a choice. Every day you have a series of choices that you make. And so when someone has a really overarching vision with a lot of goals for themselves, there's going to be things like social media that will distract you, and television, which will distract you, and caffeine, which will disable your ability to think, and it will steal your energy from tomorrow to use today. And so you need more of it. Or there will be things like alcohol, which give you a fuzzy, warm feeling at first, but then make you sick for 18 hours after using one drink. And you don't even know it, but your body knows. And so it takes energy from you, it takes vitality, and it takes your ability to do anything for yourself, right? There will be so many distractions and delusions and things to get involved with. And that's just the way that the world is designed. That's why I say it's not a nice thing, because it's like a plaster with an infected wound underneath it. You can try to hide it, but eventually something really bad is going to happen to you if you don't actually look at the reality of the situation and deal with that and get it fixed, right? So what most people want to do is they want to work a 9 to 5 and come home and sit down and watch TV. And that way they get to avoid all the things that are difficult in their mind. They don't ever have to strive for anything else. So they don't have to tap into any real purpose outside of being a mind control slave, essentially, working for the man and just getting enough to get by, And that's difficult. So it takes a really special person to realize, you know what? I actually want more from my life. What are some things that I need to limit? And what are some things that I might be thinking, or some ideas that society accepts as normal but are actually really bad for me? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I kind of broke out of that 9 to 5 structure about 5 years ago. And since then, I live in this space of anything is possible. But all the other things you mentioned have definitely come to play even in that realm. So it's like, it's interesting because even when you're aware, it's still easy to get caught up in those distractions that you were just naming. So it's like there's different types of people. I think there's people like you're describing who are literally, I like to call them sleepwalking. They
Mhm.
literally have no idea that there's more. And then there's a whole group of us in the spiritual or entrepreneurial realm where we have a better understanding, but we're still holding ourselves back because of all those distractions. So yeah, everything you said made perfect sense. And kind of an interesting side story, but when I started my spiritual journey about 4 years ago, I actually, like, right in the beginning of my journey, the first thing that I did was a workshop on, it was hypnosis, self-hypnosis for inner child work and shadow work. And I just signed up for these workshops, and I had already decided I was going to do them. And one day, clear as day, I was just like putting, my I think I was putting dishes away or something, nothing like crazy. And out of the blue, I heard clear as day, if you want to do this work, you cannot keep alcohol in the house. And it was like, I had no, it wasn't on my radar to stop drinking. I didn't have a drinking problem, but I was a single parent. When my daughter would go to bed, that would be my time to unwind. And that would be my time to just kind of like decompress. And society says, get that glass of wine. You earned it, especially as moms.
Exactly.
They really like to market that to us single and
Exactly.
moms in general, just because we worked so hard to get everything done that day. They're like, yeah, get that glass of wine. You deserved it. And so I listened. I mean, I remember I was confused and I tried to find loopholes. It was a whole thing trying to like figure out what to do with that message. But I did, I finally stopped. And that's when I realized, I was basically band-aiding all of my feelings. And so, in fact, I remember my therapist I was seeing at the time, I remember I was like, oh my God, was I addicted? And he's like, no, you weren't drinking enough to be physically addicted. You're feeling your feelings for the first time. And that was like my first aha moment of, oh my gosh, this was an escape for me. So I didn't have to deal with how I was feeling. Had no idea. And so now, I mean, I'll drink on occasion, but it's super rare because of all the things you mentioned. I always regret it the next day. It doesn't call to me. I don't care for it really anymore. But if I didn't experience that shakeup that said, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop drinking. If you want to do this work, you need." And I already knew, like, I would never have done any of the hypnotherapist work while I was inebriated. So, like, even if I had a glass of wine, I would have been like, "Oh, no, I'm not doing it tonight. Oh well." But that was the problem. If I had wine in the house, I was going to probably drink it after a long day, and then all that work, that self work and that self healing would have gone on the back burner. And I think that that's why I got that clear spiritual message of, don't do that. If you want to do this work, you cannot have access to this, because this is going to poison you and keep you from this growth that you have. So yeah, I mean, that's just the alcohol aspect. I mean, all the other things you mentioned though were on point, as far as it's easy to get distracted, whether it's a substance or it's social media or TV or any of those other things. So yeah, everything you said definitely made perfect sense.
Yeah, all of that you described is a comfort issue. If I watch TV, I'm comfortable. I don't have to think about anything except for what's going on here. I might have some thoughts that are happening, but I can shut those off with the help of the device itself. Screens are dangerous. Like I told you while you were talking on my podcast, I always talk about screens because what's now happening is people are admitting that, yeah, we have been in a global experiment using these devices. And science has said we've kept this information from you because we knew that if we told you, you might not do it. I mean, some of us grew up hearing that TV is going to rot your brains and stuff like that. But screens are responsible for lowering your IQ and decreasing verbal abilities and creating antisocial behavior. And the process by which the screens work in the brain is the precursor for addiction, addictive behavior, poor mental health, obesity. And the problem is that screens destroy the frontal lobe, which is the prefrontal cortex. And all of that's responsible for your critical thinking, your ability to analyze future events is responsible for your spirituality, and it's responsible for your morals, any kind of language based reasoning. So if you have a device with you all the time, like a phone or something, and even if you spend 10 minutes on a day, which is rare that anybody spends 10 minutes on a phone, there most people end up spending about an hour because it's a series of moments throughout the day where you're on it. Even if somebody calls you, you might get sucked in pretty easily, but it's degrading your brain tissue, regardless of the time that you spend on it. And so it's basically responsible for emotional mismanagement and aggression, and it damages your visual faculties. It damages your ability to critically assess situations. And people who watch a lot of TV, a lot of movies and stuff, their brains actually shrink, becomes at least 7% smaller than non-TV watchers. It degrades brain function so much that it actually has been found to lead to dementia in adults. It creates social anxiety because the part of the prefrontal cortex that's responsible for regulating you, it gets damaged, and it activates your limbic system. And so if you're watching reels on Instagram, for example, it can cause symptoms of ADHD, and it can cause chemical reactions in the brain that make you agitated, stressed out. You don't know why. It dysregulates you essentially. So, I mean, all that is fair and good, but I know that most people are not going to stop watching TV after hearing this. But it's just, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to have more compassion, more empathy, and more confidence? Do you want to feel motivated? Do you want to have the willpower to do the things that you need to do? Do you want to be creative? Do you want to have more patience with your family, with yourself, with other people? Do you want to be able to laser focus in on the things that you have to do so you just get them done and over with and move on to something else? Do you want to have deep spiritual connections? Eh, all of these things that we're talking about, screens and even alcohol and caffeine, and these things cause negative thoughts. They're causing depression. They're causing people to be overwhelmed. They're causing brain fog. They're causing you to feel lethargic throughout the day. They're giving people triggerless anxiety. When you have thoughts that go unchecked and you have all of these things happening in your limbic system, then you're going to be a victim to your own thinking, especially irrational fears. You're going to be angry and you're not going to know why. So, being a self sabotage coach for me is a lot about working with people to see what things they are doing, what things they permit in their environment that are stealing from their ability to manage themselves. And also, like I said, the instant you talk to somebody, the first thing they're going to tell you is their beliefs. And so it's easy. Everybody knows exactly what's going on under the surface. They just don't want to deal with it, right? And they don't have the energy to deal with it if screens and sugar and chemicals and food and stuff is taking their energy. They just don't have it. If somebody doesn't have something to give, then you can't really get mad at them, you know? They're just, and we see a lot of people out there that maybe we might think, okay, they seem like they're a little bit mindless, a little bit selfish. But in a lot of cases, that person's highly caffeinated. They're consuming bad food and they have no idea how to emotionally regulate. Their screens, they're always on their phones. So the prefrontal cortex is on and off, on and off, on and off. And then they go through periods where it's off. So it's not that they mean to be the way that they are.
Wow, there's a lot that goes into that. And I think a lot of it, like what we've already talked about, is coming from that place of just not being aware. And I guess it also starts with not wanting to deal with it first, right? I just don't want to deal with it, so I'd rather check out. Now I'm going to be unaware. And yeah, that's crazy. I mean, like I said, I experienced a little bit of that for the first time with the alcohol when I took it away from my daily use, or not, it wasn't always daily, but it was pretty much, daily, every other day, whatever. When I removed it, that was like, where all these feelings come from? Why am I having panic attacks and anxiety? And it's like, oh, because that's all these feelings that you literally have been numbing for the last several years. Not because you had a drinking problem, but because you were putting a Band-Aid on it every single night without actually dealing with what was
Precisely.
really under the surface. So, and
Precisely.
I definitely, I can admit that, I get caught in those Instagram reels from time to time. And, it's as simple as, oh, I'm just going to watch this one reel 30 minutes later. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here watching reels. Where did my time go? Why did I do that? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I can definitely see that negative pattern of getting sucked in, sucked in. For me, TV isn't as big of a thing. I'm just never, if I'm with someone who likes to watch TV, then I'll join them. But in general, that's never been like my thing. But yeah, the phone, the stories, and I struggle with ADHD. So I'm starting to wonder a little bit about that myself. Like, I mean, I've always had it even before screens and everything else. That's one thing that I did learn about my diagnosis is it goes way back, but it's probably not helping.
In most cases with ADHD, I get tons of people that come to me with an ADHD diagnosis. And then when they begin to take things out of their diet that are just causing their brain to misfire, they get a lot better.
Mhm.
Get a lot clearer and they stop seeing themselves as a victim of a label and they clean up their act. That's the beauty of it. But it takes a very special kind of person to say, okay, I've just been given a label and let me put that to the side for a second and investigate my life and see where I contribute to this thing rather than become a victim of circumstance. I get so many misdiagnoses of bipolar and anxiety and things like that. And it's really just people who aren't eating well and they're not equipped mentally to just be aware of what they're not aware of, and how to deal with the anger and the frustrations and the programming, and so that's where all the different tools and techniques come in to try to
Yeah,
figure out what exactly it is that this person tells themselves.
right.
It's time to take a short break from our wonderful speaker. Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below.
Right. And that self-talk. And we all have it. And I love how you broke that down, how you mentioned in the beginning, how you broke that down into two different things, programming, self-talk versus the conditioning and environmental. And I think that that's super important because they are different. The self-talk does kind of stem from our conditioning, but that's more of like an active, you're engaging with your own self-talk. So you're kind of creating that, making it bigger. And then there's the conditioning and environmental where it's like, these are things that are being put on you, whether you want it or not, and so it's combination of different things. So yeah, definitely managing self-talk is super important and very difficult to do, but possible because I've been in both, arenas, and when you're able to be more aware of your self-talk, then you can start making changes. And when you're aware of the environmental, the way it affects you, then you can start choosing your environments. And so you do have choices. It's just an element, like you said from the beginning, being aware, being mindful, being present. Do you feel like you've found purpose in the work that you're doing now? Do you feel like you found what you're being called to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I found purpose when I was a musician because I saw that it gave a certain demographic of people something to kind of assuage their guilt and help them avoid the tough things that were happening. You come out to a concert and you just have a good time for a little bit. You don't have to worry about anything. You go back home, but then you go back to the same problems. But once I figured that out for myself, then it made it easy for me to not want to do that anymore. And I moved on because I found so much healing through the work that I was doing on myself that I was like, I need to go do this. I know that one of the things you're going to ask me about is synchronicity. And I think it was very synchronistic that I got into this work.
Do you have any like specific stories about getting into this work and looking back how it was kind of like one thing led to another, or a specific situation that really like made you feel like you're right where you're supposed to be?
Yeah, I mean, the entire thing is a synchronicity. What happened? Okay, so let's throw it back to about 15 years ago when I first was trying to like commit suicide and stuff like that. I actually went into this really dark, murky place. And I guess this is what the cool kids call a near death experience. And I could see like these two beings on either side, and they were just looking at me and they weren't talking or anything. There was no voice of God saying you have to go back or anything that people talk about. It wasn't anything like that. I just felt like there was peace. For the first time, there was peace. And like somebody was talking to me, transmitting these ideas to me. I have no idea what it is they said to me, to be honest with you. I just knew that when I woke up, I felt completely different about my life. I felt like I was motivated to take the steps I needed to. And so it took me a few years to unpack all of that and really sit with that experience. And I traveled a lot, and there were people who showed up to help me. I get Facebook messages from people, hey, I love your music. Is there anything I can do to help you? And I'm like, well, why would you want to help me? I don't know you. And they were like, trust me, I just feel like I need to help you. So one person was like, oh, well, I love your music. I work for a radio station. I own a management company. Let me help you get your work visa, go on tour, all these different things. So that was helpful. That was synchronistic. And then another person was like, oh, well, you know, I'm a personal trainer. My roommate's a bodybuilder. We just got like a room full of protein shakes and supplements and stuff. I own a gym. Let me send you some stuff. Let me train you for free. Things like that. That really helped me. I mean, tremendously push past a lot of stuff. I lost a lot of weight. I got really fit. I Somebody sent me like a Wayne Dyer DVD, and it was Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life or something. And I watched that, and that was the first time I really got exposed to any ideas like that, because in this country it's a very negative, like it's kind of like a always on, always angry type energy. The closest thing to it I can think of is like maybe like a Arabic setting where people talk to each other and they might be saying something nice, but if you don't understand the language, it sounds like they're just arguing or whatever. Well, we speak English here. A lot of people are always, the things that they say come across combative and stuff like that. And so it's not a good environment to be in unless you know how to manage it. Like unless you understand that these people they don't really mean to be rough. And we grew up pretty rough. So I didn't really know what to do with that because I never liked it. I never liked the culture. I felt like the culture was very restrictive, very aggressive. It was always pointing towards drugs and alcohol and just like forgetting your problems and trying to have a good time, go dance and party and stuff. And I didn't like that. So I had to undo a lot of that programming as well. And I remember getting to a point where I was just reading so much and really feeling ready to just do something. And I was at a gig somewhere in Pennsylvania. And this really tall guy comes up to me when I was talking to the sound engineer and he taps me on the shoulder. And he says, I notice you have a tremendous affinity for leadership. Have you ever heard of coaching? And I gestured to him, like, okay, just give me a second because I was talking to the guy. And I turned around then when I was finished to say something to this guy, and he was gone. And I was looking for him, and I don't know where he went to, but I went home and I looked it up, and I got into that stuff, and I, spent all my money on courses and things like that. But it wasn't giving me what I needed, and so I defaulted back to psychology, regular old psychology, and the things that were helping me, like CBT for anxiety, was one of the textbooks I picked up and just started studying on my own. And then I was like, okay, this feels right. This is the thing that I need to do. This is what I need to be doing. And that's what got me on this path, really.
That's fascinating. And yeah, so it's like all the doors were opening when you needed it to. And I'm curious about whoever tapped you on the shoulder, because it almost seemed like a potential intervention, from spirit, like just to get your attention, but not enough to like stick around more than that.
My angel moment, because this guy just came out of nowhere and he wasn't even interested in sticking around. It was just to give me a blessing, plant the seed and move on.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. It does. I was thinking angel too, like angel or spirit being or light being that was just like, you need a little bit of a tap here, and then we're gonna let you figure it out, but let's just plant the seed. So, it's so cool.
I feel like that's what's happening to a lot of people. They're so caught up in their everyday self-sabotage or their everyday lives in the midst of trying to figure something out. And whatever universal spirit is out there is like, this guy is just taking too long. Like, somebody give him a nudge. you know?
There's this meme that I love that I laugh at because it feels so relevant. It says, this is probably my spirit guide. So, like when you're driving in your car and like a squirrel runs across in front of you and you're like, get out of the way, get out of the way. And you're freaking out, and then they get out of the way just in the nick of time. There's a meme that says, that's how my spirit guide probably feels watching me. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, I think that's why being present is so important, because there's a lot of moments throughout the day that we would miss. I feel like we all have multiple purposes and we ignore them. A lot of us don't even see raising a child as a purpose, just see it as a thing we have to do, and which is kind of crazy to me. Like some people, I use this example all the time. Some people are garbage collectors, some people are street sweepers, and that's their purpose because we need those things in society. But they have other things that they need to do too. They need to be a good father or a good mother or a good sister, or even some people might not be comfortable with this, but some people need to be a good Christian. There are some people out there that are really good, really religiously oriented, and they're good people. They get it. They get the message of the whole Jesus thing, and they're good to others, and they don't mean you any harm, and they don't preach to you either. They just do their own thing for their own advancement. And what is your purpose? Is it to just be a little spark of light in a world that just kind of is trying to blow out the candles every single day for one reason or another, because we've allowed through our own choice to be disempowered, to let a certain group of people dictate and dominate the energy? We have that choice. We have the ability to do anything that we want to do. And if you feel like something is calling to you, then you should do it. I would tell anybody, just don't ignore the subtleties. Don't even ignore like a feather on the ground. Like pick it up, look at it, do something other than look at your screen. Do something and just be present and aware, because like the subconscious is always asking you one question, and it's like, okay, can I keep this thing? And it's a yes or no. It's not, you don't have to get involved with it all the way and get overly emotional about it. You just sit back and self-reflect and be like, okay, yeah, I've been keeping that thing in my brain for a long time and it hasn't actually served me. I've been afraid of it. It makes me angry. I need to forgive this person, all that stuff. But we don't want to do it for one reason or another. Or we don't want to look around and see the way that things are really going out there and make different choices. You just kind of want to have tunnel vision, you know? And I think that's one of the definitions of trauma, isn't it? Where a person's so bothered by something that they just have tunnel vision. They don't want to look at it at all, you know?
Yeah. Well, you actually just answered my last question I was going to ask you, which was, do you believe that everyone has a purpose? And so you totally just answered that. And which I loved your answer, because not only was it yes, but and to pay attention, like you said, but you also covered all the different aspects of purpose. Because I think some people think it's just this big grandiose thing, and it's not. It's like you said, holding the door open for someone. That could be an act of kindness that someone else really needed, being that light, something as simple as holding the door for someone. Or, you know, you mentioned raising children. That is crazy how much it's not, like, women could be single moms or moms in general. And yeah, it's, well, what are you doing with your life? Well, maybe it's being a mom. Maybe it's raising your child to be the next generation that's going to change things and, be more present and be, all the things. And so, yeah, there's so much to it. I know that you're not the biggest fan of screens, so I don't know if you happen to see the movie Soul by Disney, came out a few years ago, but it's a good movie in the sense that I loved the message. It's all about, it was a very spiritual movie for being Disney, but the whole message, like, these two souls were looking for their purpose the whole time. And the message at the end of the movie was, the purpose was living. The purpose was taking in every single moment. It's not about finding the thing that you're really good at. That's your passion, and that can be a purpose to a point. That can be one of your many purposes, but it's not the purpose. And that was the whole meaning of the movie, was to just live every
Yeah.
moment to its
I've
fullest.
literally had clients that are like, I don't know what my purpose is. And I'm like, you're alive, right? And they're like, yeah. Like, well, you're right on top of it.
Right. Yeah, it's a miracle that we're here.
Whatever you're
Right?
doing, you're probably on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, we forget how it's not the fact that we're even alive, all the things that made us be where we are at, what I mean, our ancestry, how we came to be ourselves, all the working parts in our body. I mean, that is on purpose. It's a beautiful way to look at it. And I think it's overlooked. You're breathing, right? You have air in your lungs. It's, yeah, I love that. It's like as simple as you can get, but as profound as you can get too.
It is profound, but unfortunately, to somebody that's struggling mentally, I see it so often. None of that matters. They're just hyper focused on being traumatized, and I think
Yeah.
that with that, there's a darker side of things too, because popular psychology wants to convince people of labels. They want to convince you that you have childhood trauma and that you have attachment styles and you have this thing and that thing. And all those things serve a person as a protective mechanism, because they say, okay, that's it. I have trauma. I have a avoidant personality. I have generalized anxiety. I don't actually have to do anything about it now. I can just be this broken thing that carries around a big bag of luggage, and I can just expect everybody around me to deal with it. I don't have to do anything to change, because they don't know how to fix it when it's your responsibility. It's all about personal responsibility, personal empowerment. Even conspiracy theorists are like, oh, the government's trying to kill us. Well, The government can only kill you if you allow the government to kill you. If you don't stop watching David Icke and clean up your act and, you know, take responsibility for your life, then they're going to get you. And there's going to be tricks. There's going to be challenges, like in my situation when we spoke, I told you like the cost of living has gone up so high. It's like, okay, money is going out faster than I can make it again. I got to find some more avenues to fill those gaps because I don't have any more hours in the day I can work. Right. So, and a lot of people are having that globally, that same challenge. Don't let it get to you. Get proactive. Start figuring out some things that you can do, some places that you can cut and contrive. Where are your expenses? Right now, I just happen to have a training in accounts, so it's easy for me. I have an uncle who's also a successful accountant in San Francisco, so I could ask him for advice. I have plenty of other people who are in the finance world that I can ask for help. There's always solutions to things, advice that you can get from someone. I don't want anybody to feel pressured into like giving me a call for coaching or anything either. Like there's people around you that you can talk to.
Yeah, that's a great message. And it's interesting because there's a couple different ways you can look at the labeling that goes on, like the attachment styles and the, trauma and everything else. Because like the way you're describing it, yes, there's a ton of people who hear that and that becomes their identity. And that's that.
Mhm.
That's just
Yeah.
they're putting it on like a suit every day. Like, oh, this is me. This is my trauma. They're wearing it proudly, almost like a badge. Like, here's my name tag and all the things, you know. Whereas, for me, I love learning about that stuff because then it helps me go, okay, yes, I have anxious attachment style and I can see it. Okay, I'm aware of it now. So how can I move that more to the what, I don't know what it's called, but the healthy one? How do I move myself closer to that? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like awareness could be like, that's what it's there for. It's an awareness piece. That way you can better yourself.
But there's, like you said, the name tag. And then there's, okay, I'm aware of this thing. How can I watch that? And then there's, okay, there's something in my subconscious that makes this happen over and over. Where's that thing? How can I pull that out and never have to deal with it again? So
Right.
there's different layers to it. And that's kind of like what I do. And most people are so surprised within a few months how they just don't even think the same way they did anymore. That's why I keep telling people it's your choice. Like whatever it is, it can go away. You can make it go away. Just
Yeah.
don't ever think that the middle ground has to be satisfactory either. There's something beyond that. It's up to you and what you do with it in every situation. It's up to you. Like, nobody's like that saying that's going around, nobody's coming to save you. Ain't gonna happen.
To mention too, when you're talking about like conspiracy theorists and those or those that like feel like the government has all the control and everything else, that reminds me a lot of how I view curses actually, because
Mhm.
like, when people come to me like, oh my gosh, I've been cursed or this or that, it's like, okay, let's talk about this for a second. Do I personally believe in curses and negative entities? I do. But I also believe that it's because you're choosing to give it power. I think that you're the one that's, if someone that says, oh, I curse you, if you believe it and then you put fear into it, you're going to see the results of that because now your belief is going to turn into reality because that's what our belief system does. Our belief equals what is happening around us. But if you decide in that moment, okay, I don't believe in that. No, I'm not going to let that touch me. And like literally just decide that that doesn't exist. It's not going to be able to hold you back. It's literally all up here. And I learned that too with my own spiritual side. Like when I was younger, and if I ever felt something in the room that was like scary to me in the past, I would turn on all my lights and I would sleep underneath my covers. I mean, like even as a grown person, that would be how I would handle it because it was like, I feel like there's something that shouldn't be here. I'm freaking out. I don't know how, but then I felt powerless. That's why I did all those things. Now I feel like, if I ever feel that way, there's certain things that I do that literally make me go, I think I'm feeling something that shouldn't be here. I'm not going to cater to it. I'm not going to be afraid of it. I'm going to tell it to leave. And then I'm going to go back to sleep with my lights out. Like, I'm not going to let it affect my life and keep me scared. So I feel like that fear coming back to that government, it's the same thing. When you're fearful of something, you're giving that thing you're afraid of all the power. when you actually have all the power for
Yeah.
yourself. And so, you can break outside of the constraints that, because they want you, I mean, all the theys, whether it's fear or the government or whatever, they want you to be afraid, because then you're playing a part in the game. Or you can choose to say, I don't want to play the game anymore, and I'm gonna be accountable to my life and what I want out of my life, but I'm not gonna be doing it because I feel like I'm afraid, or this is gonna happen if I don't.
Right. That's the way it is, though. It's like you're right on top of it. They, whoever they might be, are relying on us to falter. They're relying on us to take the weak option and not be self-aware and aware of what they do and aware of how we naturally want to respond to it. And fear, let's just say, is the mind killer. But freedom is freedom all the way. And it's up to you to reach out and grab it. It's not about anybody else's approval. They, like we said, are relying on the breakdown of community and the breakdown of the family system and things like that, so that they can kind of continue to corral us and continue that cycle of money, power, and respect. But we don't have to pay any attention to it. Empowerment means just doing what you have to do for yourself and your family, and forgetting about the in-between stuff. And like I said before, it takes a really special kind of person to see all this stuff and then go, oh, I'm just going to go over here. I'm not going to take the poison. I'm not going to do the politics. I'm not going to worry about what the next movie is about. And maybe if I want to see it, I'll see it at some point later, but I don't have to participate in that whole system of control and a war of ideas and all those different things. I just want to be peaceful. Just want to have my peace and create my piece of the world.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh, 100% to all of that. So if our listeners do want to work with you, they want to work with you either as a self-sabotage coach or as a therapist or hypnotherapist, any of the things you offer, how can they find you?
All you have to do is follow me on Instagram at Jehan Sattaur. I'll spell that JehanSattaur. Have a conversation with me, or you can email me at selfsabotageinfo@proton.me.
Okay, perfect. I'll be sure to put both of those in the show notes so they can find you a little easier if they want to work with you. And thank you so much for coming on here and chatting about, I haven't had anyone talk about this side of self-development yet. It's a little bit of the darker side, but I think it needs to be talked about because it's what's really happening underneath.
It's the people and in the top ring of the personal development industry, the people you see on the other side of the screen or the authors and stuff, they don't mean to be the way that they are. Like, they don't mean to be super positive and super forceful with their ideas and do all this motivational stuff. They are only allowed to do that. They're curated. When they write books, it's the publishing house is going to edit it. And so they cannot tell you all the in-between stuff that goes into it. It's hard work. Self-development is hard work. But if they told you it was hard work, you wouldn't sign up for their program or any of the other stuff that they're offering, right? And they know that. They have families, they have to make a living. So we have this society system that's been set up, and it's another conditioned thing where anybody that isn't doing the light and fluffy, airy fairy thing is automatically a conspiracy theorist. And that too has become marketable. So I would urge anybody to pay attention to who they're listening to and say, okay, well, what is the quality of the information this person is giving me? Is the information they're giving me going to get me to actually look at my habits and behaviors, or are they just trying to sell me a new ebook or a new program or something, get thousands of dollars from me, and then I don't actually see big changes in my life, right? Because that's what you want. You want big shifts, you want big changes, and you're in charge of that. The best way has always been to work with a therapist or hypnotist or somebody that really knows what's going on, that has lived that experience and can show you this is the way to go. So if you see a really big wall, especially a paywall between you and someone, question that. what is their purpose for being there? And there's a lot of things out there that need to be addressed. And personal curiosity is a big part of that, because there's so many barriers to you and tapping into the fullness of your consciousness that exists. But you're not going to know that they're there unless you look beyond what people are saying, even look beyond what I'm saying, what we say on this show. Get curious, be like, okay, I wonder, because most of this stuff is just a quick Google search away, or there's
Yeah.
a book out there or something.
I mean, technically, no one really needs to use a therapist to get there. It's just like a guide. It's just someone to help guide them and have someone to talk to on the journey. But technically, this is all in, this is everything we're talking about is basically an inside job. So
Right.
whether you do it on your own or you find someone to help you through it, it all starts here.
And there, I mean, I know that for like a lot of people, we used to have a strong sense of community where if something was a problem for you, you had people you could talk to. But people end up coming to me because they don't have someone they can talk to that's going to set them straight. Because in a lot of cases, people just haven't been shaken because they're
Right.
hanging on so tightly to this thing that keeps them safe. That's what the subconscious mind is primarily concerned with, safety. So even if you talk to someone, you might not get it. You might have to talk to several people and have them tell you the same thing in a different way before you go, oh, there's a light on now. But
Yep.
communication is so important and investigation is so important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, this has been such a really wonderful conversation. And again, darker but needed. It's like the duality, light and dark. We need both sides of it. And it's important to know what's holding us back from the lighter side, right? And so thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and being here today. And yeah, this has been a great conversation.
Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.